G'day, ladies and gentlemen. ScottyD here from the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network, and welcome into the next installment in our competitive focus series here on the network. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Now, it has been a hot minute since we've actually done a competitive focus video on the network, and this is going to be the first one for 10th edition that we're going to be doing for the series. Now, we're kind of cresting up to about a year into 10th edition, and today's video I'm going to start a short series we're going to do on the competitive focus where we're going to be looking at, and I'm going to show you my thoughts and feelings and working through how I actually approach the Deathwatch currently. In today's video is we're going to do a breakdown of the Deathwatch, and we're going to look at why they are struggling in the meta at the moment, try to figure out what that potentially is, a couple of reasons why, and the ways that they can improve in the game as well going forward, as we are due for the next balanced data slate in the next couple of weeks. Now, before we jump into the content of today's video, I want to thank everyone who has been supporting us here on YouTube by subscribing to the channel, liking our videos, commenting. Really appreciate all you guys and the support you are providing to the network, along with everyone who is just watching our content as well. Really appreciate it. And those watch hours don't go unnoticed, as we are starting to get quite close to being able to unlock community monetization as well. So I really appreciate each and every one of you for watching even 1 to 2 minutes of our videos as well. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone for doing so. So without further ado, let's jump into talking a little bit about the Deathwatch. Now, when we have a look at Deathwatch and how they are struggling a bit at the moment, there is a wonderful tool that has been created by our friends over at StatCheck, who have got a 4-week cumulative win rate for the Deathwatch they're going to have up on screen for you guys, that it actually puts together the win rate for the faction over the past 4 weeks and takes an average of it, basically. And so, as you can see with Deathwatch, when we look at that cumulative win rate from the start of the edition, where they peaked quite well, they actually drop slowly over time, where, since October last year, they've been well below that 50% win rate for those 4-week periods. And then also, you're also looking at it where it's currently hit its lowest at the start of March, being at 33%, which is actually quite bad for the faction. And it's quite discouraging, to be honest, as a Deathwatch player. I love my Deathwatch. They're one of my favorite factions in 40k, and to see them struggling like this in the competitive setting is saddening. And I really want to be able to understand why that's occurring and how we can actually add some volume to why Deathwatch is struggling and the ways that, balance can be added to help them out as well. So this begs the question, why are they struggling so much in the competitive meta? So first, we can't look at Deathwatch in a vacuum when it comes to their data, because due to the nature of their supplement, we actually rely a lot on the Space Marine Codex. And so we also have to look at not just Space Marine Codex itself, but all of the other supplements when we are looking at Space Marine data in general. Now, since the most recent balanced data slate in January, we can actually see that Deathwatch are the only faction with a win rate that has taken a significant drop compared to some of the other Marine factions. Yes, Dark Angels have taken a little bit of a drop in recent times as well, but it's important to be aware that Deathwatch are the most struggling Space Marine faction currently. So from this, we can surmise that, Deathwatch either have some issues with their index, maybe they've got some issues with the points, or they've got some issues in the meta as it currently stands. And for today, we're going to be diving into the index and their points to kind of see what's going on with the actual index itself, so we can actually figure out if it's an indexed or points-based issue and not just an error in the meta that they are struggling with at the moment. All right, so we've got the Deathwatch index in front of us. It's going to be up on screen for you guys, and we're going to go through the main detachment rules first. Then we're going to look at the, all the stuff for the Black Spear Task Force, and then we're going to jump into the units, giving a brief run through of what they do, not doing too much detail in terms of play-by-play, but it is going to be a good spot to be able to, see where all this information drops. So starting off with the main army rule, which is kill teams. Now, kill teams don't really add a lot You know, there are 4 kill teams within the army. Don't get me wrong. They're an important thing that need to be addressed because there's mixed toughness values, mixed movement values, mixed keywords, things like that. And so really the kill team rules really address those just so there's no issues when you're interacting with transports or benefits of cover rules, things like that are caveated down below at the bottom of this data card. However, the Black Spear Task Force detachment is quite an interesting detachment in and of itself. It can be quite limiting, but the impact of its limits mean that you can also actually build into it quite well if you know what units you want to take to make the most of these rules. So first off, the detachment itself actually has some restrictions. So it's got the standard restriction that all supplements have got, that you can't include any other Adeptus Astartes units drawn from any other chapter. So you can't take Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Black Templars, etc., whilst also running Deathwatch, which makes perfect sense. Then you have got the next one, and this is where it was quite limiting it more towards the start of the edition, where we had Index Hammer, basically, whereas now it's a lot less limiting, which is the restriction on units that you can't include in a Deathwatch list. So with this, you know, it does say you can't include assault squads with jump packs, attack bikes, land speeder storms, and scout snipers. All of those units have basically been moved to Legends, or they've been replaced with a Primaris version of those units. For example, the Assault Squad with jump packs is now effectively the Assault Intercessors with jump packs. So really, the 3 units that you can't actually include in a Deathwatch Army list is a Devastator Squad, Scout Squad, and Tactical Squad. That's it. They're the only 3 units from the Space Marine Codex you can't include in Deathwatch Force, which does make sense. These guys are meant to be an elite task force of Space Marines. They're veterans. It definitely makes sense. You don't want scouts in there. You don't want your basic firstborn bolter bros or your basic firstborn heavy weapon guys in there as well. Now, when we get into the mission tactics rule of the detachment, this is where the spice starts to come in for Deathwatch. Now, much like the Gladius Task Force, you're able to use one of these mission tactics once per game for an entire turn, or basically from the start of your command phase up until the start of your next command phase. There is also a stratagem we'll look at that we'll get into that's really great that works with these tactics as well. So the first tactics is the Furor tactics. Basically, it gives you sustained hits 1 across your melee and shooting weapons, which is awesome. The next one is Malleus tactics. This one gives you lethal hits on all your weapons. And the next one is Purgatus, which is giving precision on critical hits. So sustained hits 1 is probably the biggest one that you will make use of, particularly for your go turns with Deathwatch. Lethal hits is great if you're not running a lot of lieutenants to give that lethal hit support where you need it. And then Purgatus tactics is kind of a bit of a niche when you're playing against something that's got a lot of characters and you're able to pick those out with melee or shooting, for example. So it's really important that when you combine these with, say, Oaths of Moment, for example, you actually can make a lot of damage come out from sustained hits 1. So you've already got lethal hits on the unit. This is a good tactic I've been using in a Gladius, for example, is being able to pop up a unit of Stern Guard with lethal hits, sustained hits 1, and really ram home the damage against an Oath of Moment target with Stern Guard veterans. So after those mission tactics, there is some good play around them. We're actually going to look at the stratagems. Now, like all Space Marines, you have got Armor of Contempt in there. Everyone should be familiar with Armor of Contempt. I'm not going to go through that too much. Then, the way that the other 5 stratagems all work is that you can actually target up to 2 kill team units or 1 other Adeptus Astartes unit from your army. So that's the same wording for all 5 of the other stratagems, and so you're able to make use of those as it happens. Now, the important thing to note here as well is that Armor of Contempt is the only battle tactic stratagem that the Deathwatch have. So it means the other 5 stratagems are non-vectable at the moment. And we'll get into what the vect is a little bit later, because the Deathwatch have actually got a vect ability as well. We've got the first stratagem we're going to look at is the Adaptive Tactics stratagem. Now, this one, as I said, is the stratagem that works exactly the same way as the Gladius Task Force one is. So again, you use it in your command phase for 1 CP, you can put a unit into one of the mission tactics we already said. So either sustained hits 1, lethal hits, or precision on critical hits. for either 2 kill teams or 1 Adeptus Astartes unit. This is really good because it means that you're able to get value with sustained hits 1 consistently throughout the game, and this is probably one of the stratagems that you're going to want to constantly have CP for. The next stratagem that you're going to want to constantly have CP for is Teleportarium. And this is probably the best stratagem in the detachment. This is better than what the scouts have in terms of ability and what the Spectrus kill team has as well. At the end of your opponent's fight phase, you can pick up either 2 kill teams or 1 other Adeptus Astartes infantry unit. You remove them from the battlefield in your next reinforcement step, and it does specifically stay the reinforcement step of your next movement phase, so you can use it battle round 1. You set those units up anywhere outside of 9 inches horizontally from any enemy units, but the only caveat is you can't select units that are within engagement range. So this is much better than having to stay outside of 6 inches for the Spectrus kill team and scouts in the basic Marine Codex to do the pickup and then put them back down. And being able to use it battle round 1 is really solid as well, because it specifically says your next movement phase. So if you are going second, turn 1, legally you are actually allowed to do it because your models do start on the battlefield. Now, the next 3 strategies we're going to look at, and one of them on the screen, we'll scroll down to the other 2 in a minute, are all the new way they've done special issue ammunition. Now, if you've been around for a while on the channel, you know that, if you heard me talking during streams, I love my Stern Guard. When they were first introduced, they had special issue ammunition. Then, when Deathwatch got introduced in 8th, they got special issue ammunition. And so I was like, I love special issue ammo. It's great. They do 3 out of the 4 special ammunition types here. Unfortunately, they don't have the Vengeance rounds, which were the additional -1 AP or -2 AP. However, they reduced your range previously in 9th. So they no longer have that. It's now just stratagems for 3 of them, which is Hellfire rounds, Kraken bolts, or Kraken rounds, I should say. It used to be called Kraken bolts, and Dragonfire rounds, which were Dragonfire bolts. So each of these costs 1 CP. Again, you use it during your shooting phase. You have to select a unit that hasn't shot already. And it only applies to bolt weapons, which had to be put in the balanced data slate within the first 6 weeks, when Stern Guard were popping off with Hellfire rounds, with Dev wounds, being able to do so much damage. And Games Workshop's like, no, we actually don't want to see that happening. And so they put some caveats in there for sure. So Hellfire rounds, the way this one works is, basically, until the end of the turn, the bolt weapons the unit actually has, excluding weapons with dev wounds. And this was the stratagem specifically that was proccing off with dev wounds on the Stern Guard. You actually get the anti-infantry 2+ and the anti-monster 5+ abilities. And with all of the ammunitions, you cannot select a unit that's already been given another ammunition to use. So you can't give a unit both Hellfire and Kraken rounds, because you can't put 2 bullets in 1 chamber, basically, is the law behind that. So by being able to, give this unit, basically wounding on 2s against infantry or wounding on 5s against monsters can really help, particularly when you use one of the enhancements we're going to talk about a little bit later on. The other 2 rounds are Kraken bolts, or Kraken rounds as they're called now. I'm just calling them Kraken bolts because that's what I know them as. This one is actually probably my personal favorite out of the 3. It's an additional 6 inches of range and an additional -1 AP. So if you're already firing weapons that are AP 1, for example, you can make them AP 2, give them some extra range, which also improves rapid fire range as well. So that's something else to bear in mind when you are looking at Kraken rounds. Dragonfire rounds, I definitely rank as the 3rd because it gives you the assault and ignores cover abilities. So if you're firing AP1, you get ignores cover, great. If you don't have the assault keyword, sure, that's actually really great because you can advance and then still shoot. But if you've already got assault on your weapons, you're not really getting a lot of benefit outside of just ignoring cover, which an AP of -1 will do anyway. So those are kind of your stratagems you'll have access to make use of when it comes to the Deathwatch. They're useful in the right circumstances, but as a whole, they can actually be quite limiting because they're restricted to bolt weapons, and the other limitation that I forgot to mention was the fact that they're limited to non-vehicle units. So you can't put it on a Storm Raven with Hurricane Bolters that's within 12 inches to put out 24 shots that are anti-infantry 2+. I attempted to do that when I played with my Storm Raven recently, and I read the strat, and it says, no, you can't. It sucks, but I understand why. You can't have, these guys are probably manually putting in the rounds or picking a particular magazine they've got loaded in the lore per se for them, rather than being able to just go and, you know, put it into a massive belt feed going in a hurricane bolter, for example. Now, we're going to jump in terms of the enhancements, and some of these are great choices, and they've got some great points cost to go with them. However, for Deathwatch, some of them are quite expensive for what you get. The first one we're going to look at is Thief of Secrets. Now, this one is 15 points. It gives the bearer +1 strength, an additional -1 AP, and +1 damage on melee weapons, and when they kill an enemy model due to one of their melee attacks, it's just killing a model, not a unit. They get +2 strength, an additional -2 AP instead of -1, and +2 damage, which can really turn someone that's not a close combat threat into a close combat threat for 15 points, which is quite nice. The next one you've got is the Osseous Key. It's a Watchmaster or Tech Marine only, and during your opponent's shooting phase, if you're within 12 inches of an enemy vehicle that's not a Titanic unit, and you're within 12 and visible, which is important, that unit has to take a leadership test. If they pass it, they're at -1 to hit with all their shooting attacks for the rest of the phase. If they fail, they just can't shoot this phase. So it can turn off a key enemy vehicle, but you have to be up close and personal to do it, and it's worth 20 points. This is the one enhancement I don't really rate on Deathwatch. To be honest, it's a bit too niche for my liking and a bit too situational. Then you've got the Beacon Angelus, probably the best relic the Deathwatch have, and this one is 30 points. It's an Adepts of Astartes model only, so you're not limited in who you can put it onto. It gives the bearer's unit Deep Strike, which is actually really solid. In addition to that, you also Rapid Ingress for 0 CP, which actually is huge, particularly when, you know, you're wanting to effectively do some fun stuff with them. I've been able to use this on a Stern Guard brick coming in from Deep Strike and just blow something away that I needed to at the right time in the right spot. Use the Teleportarium strat to pick them back up, put them back down the following turn, things like that. It's really solid. So definitely worth it for units that can't Deep Strike. Then the next one, and this is probably what I would rank the highest of effectiveness, but it's got the highest points cost, which is why I put it at second. And it's the Tome of Ectoclades. Now, the Tome's been around for a while. It used to be a once per battle previously, so it's still a once per battle here. It has to be on a Watchmaster or a Captain, so bear that in mind with this enhancement. Once per battle, after you've selected an enemy unit using the Oaths of Moment ability, you can use this enhancement if the bearer is on the battlefield. That's the important thing. They have to be on the battlefield for you to be able to use it. When you do so, you get to select a second enemy unit for the target of Oaths of Moment. However, the important thing to note is until your next command phase, against both Oath of Moment targets, you get rerolls to hit and rerolls to wound. This is the only way currently outside of other units and other detachments that I'm aware of that you can get rerolls to wound against the Oath of Moment target for everything in your army. So 2 units that you're rerolling hit, rerolling to wound against. It is great for the go turn. When you combine this with sustained hits 1 for the army wide, you can really do a lot of damage in the one turn due to rerolling to hit, rerolling to wound against 2 targets. Really make use of a lot of the ability that the Tome gives you. However, the 40 points really does take a decent chunk. So if you're wanting to take the Thief of Secrets, Beacon Angelus, and the Tome, you're looking at 90 points for enhancements right there. Compared to something like, say, you look at Gladius, for example, you take Fire Discipline, that's 30 points. You take Adept of the Codex, that's 20. There's 50 points in 2 great enhancements as well. So the enhancements are quite expensive for what you get, but I think what you get is well worth it. So with that being said about the enhancements, I think overall, the Osseous Key, as I've said, isn't a great enhancement, but the other 3 are definitely worthwhile considering when you are going to play Deathwatch. Now, as a whole, the Black Spear Task Force is a decent detachment. I'm not going to say it's phenomenal. I'm not going to say it's terrible. It's decent. If you build into it right, you can play with it. There are different elements that are an issue. I'm pretty certain they could have made all the ammunitions into one stratagem, and you pick one of the 3 stratagem options. Sorry, not one of the 3 stratagem options, one of the 3 ammo options to give to you the units you've chosen, and then give them 2 other stratagems that they'd be able to utilize for some other stuff. Now, one of the mission tactics, I'm not the biggest fan of Pegasus. I'm not a fan of precision on criticals because it means that you're needing to get those criticals before Then you roll to wound, and if you successfully wound with those criticals, then you can put it onto a character if you're able to see them and such. It just adds another level that you have to go through rather than being like, okay, cool, these attacks have precision, and it kind of splits them out and being like you have to roll them separately, you have to take time to deal with them. So I'm not the biggest fan of that one. Lethal hits as well can be good if you're not running a lot of lieutenants. But if you're running a lot of lieutenants in your list, then you're not necessarily going to find use for the lethal hit as much. It's probably your secondary go turn if you really need it and you don't have a lot of character support, or you don't have a lot of units that don't require Oaths of Moment. So now that we've covered the Deathwatch detachment, we're actually going to cover the Deathwatch units. Whilst I won't be going into detail, I'll still be looking at the data card and what they can get, and looking at the vital and key parts as to why different units get what they get. And the first data card we are going to be looking at is the Watchmaster. Watchmaster, he's 115 points, 5 wounds, 2 up save, 4 up invo, which is really great. Vigil Spear is actually really solid as well in combat. He's got strategic knowledge, so this allows the unit he leads to be able to advance, fall back, shoot, and charge, which is actually nuts. It's basically, if I put it in other words, you can get all of the combat doctrines from the Gladius in one model gear, basically. He also has the Watchmaster ability where once per battle, when your opponent uses a stratagem, if this model is your warlord and is on the battlefield, you can use this ability. You can make a battle tactic stratagem cost 1 more CP, but you can only have one Watchmaster as your warlord, so you only get the 1 Vect. However, if you want to take a Calidus Assassin, not a Calidus Grav Tank, a Calidus Assassin, you can have 2 Vects in an army, which is kind of nice to have if you want that functionality within your list. So the downside to the Watchmaster, however, is what units he's able to join. He is only able to join Deathwatch Veterans and Proteus kill teams. So it means that if you're taking this guy, you need to take Deathwatch Veterans at minimum, and we'll get into talking about them in a little bit as well. But overall, 115 points is well worth for fallback, advance, shoot, and charge, as well as his output in combat and the ability of a Vect, as we colloquially call it. So definitely think he's well worth that price tag. Next up, we come to Watch Captain Artemis. Now, Watch Captain Artemis, 75 points. He's a traditional firstborn captain, so only 4 wounds, T4, 3 up save, 4 up invo. He does have a 6 up feel no pain, which is kind of nice. Hellfire Extremis is a anti-infantry 4+ devastating wound flamer bolt gun, which is kind of nuts that they've just given it the flamer profile and not actually worried about the ammo in the actual bolter. It used to be 2 different profiles, but that's cool. Then he's got Tactical Instinct. Now, this is where you can use a stratagem on his unit, even though you've used it elsewhere already this battle round, and even if his unit is battle shocked. However, you still have to pay the CP for it, so that's something else to bear in mind. And then you've also got Unstoppable Champion. This is basically a resurrection ability. When he's destroyed for the first time, roll a d6 at the end of the phase. On a 2-up, he stands back up as close as possible to where he was killed, and not within engagement range, basically, and he has 1 wound remaining. Okay, cool. He's got 4 wounds, going to die pretty quickly. I really don't rate this guy, to be honest. I'm not seeing him in a lot of lists. He, again, much like the Watchmaster, he can only join Proteus kill teams or Deathwatch Veterans. So, again, I don't really rate this guy. Not seeing him in a lot of lists, so don't really see him seeing much play. Next up, we get to Kill Team Cassius. Now, Kill Team Cassius is 255 points for 11 models with a lot of different abilities, a lot of different weapons, and a lot of different profiles. So there is a Librarian in the unit to give the unit 4-up feel no pain against psychic attacks. Catechism of Death from Chaplain Cassius himself gives the units melee weapons devastating wounds, which is nice. They reroll leadership tests and battle shocks, whilst having a whole host of different melee weapons and shooting weapons. The thing is that the unit is so split in terms of what weapons it actually does have, that the devastating wounds with melee does help, but it's really hard to make this unit work. They do have Deep Strike as well, so you can, Deep Strike them in. They are technically a character, but it is an epic hero due to Cassius, meaning you can't give the characters enhancements and such. So, not seeing a lot of play out of Kill Team Cassius. The models are great as well, So if you want to just, like what I've done, I've grabbed Kill Team Cassius, but I'm going to use those models in other kill teams and stuff as well, just as, you know, nice to look at pieces so that you can actually have some really detailed models in your Deathwatch units outside of the bulk standard veterans, which, funnily enough, we're going to be talking about the Deathwatch veterans next. The Deathwatch veterans are the only battle line unit that the Deathwatch actually have. These guys are 110 points for 5 guys or 220 points for 10. Your traditional Marina 3-up save 2 wounds, basically. But they've got Deaths to the Alien ability, so they get reroll 1s to hit base with any attacks, whether that's ranged or melee. And if you're targeting a non-Imperium or non-Chaos unit, you actually get full rerolls to hit instead, which is really quite nice. They have access to Astartes shields for a 4-up invulnerable save, but where these guys really come in clutch is some of their close combat weapon options, like the Deathwatch Thunderhammer, being strength 10 -2, flat 3 damage, with devastating wounds as well. And then some of the shooting weapons they get access to, particularly the frag cannon and the Infernus heavy bolters, are really quite nice. Frag cannon being blast, rapid fire D3 shots, strength 7 -1, 2 damage, can do a lot of damage. They do, of course, have access to the missile launchers as well. Now, they can be joined by any character that can jump into a Sternguard or Vanguard veteran unit, which is nice. They have a lot of variety. You can take up to 2 Deathwatch Thunderhammers per 5 guys in the unit. You can have all of the guys take a long vigil melee weapon, a close combat weapon. You can take a Astartes shield with bolt gun and close combat weapon, or you can take an Astartes shield and long vigil melee weapon. You can have the Sergeant have a Xenophase blade, which is basically a long vigil melee weapon with devastating wounds. You can take, for every 5 models, 2 of the heavy weapons, so whether that's frag cannon, Infernus heavy bolters, or missile launchers. They did remove the heavy flamers from the unit, but that kind of makes sense because of the Infernus heavy bolter. So overall, this is a staple of Deathwatch at the moment. It's probably the most viable, one of the most viable units they've got. The problem is if you're only taking 5-mans, there are other units in the Marine Codex that will be able to do the same job more effectively for less points. So for example, if you wanted to go close combat, taking 2 hammers and 3 shields with close combat weapons, sure, that's going to be a lot of close combat output, which is great, but they cost 20 points more than 3 Blade Guard veterans in the basic Marine Codex. So that's something else you got to bear in mind with these guys. You know, if you're going shooting, you want to take a 10-man to do the same shooting style stuff. The thing is that the 220 points, which is 40 points more than Sternguard veterans are currently. And Sternguard do a much better job shooting-wise. So that's something to bear in mind. Now, these guys do have the kill team keywords, so if you take multiple kill teams, you can select multiple Deathwatch veteran squads to have those special issue ammunitions going off as well. Next up, we have got the Deathwatch Terminators. Now, much like the veterans, they are a little bit pointsy. The 210 points for 5 or 420 points for 10. Now, when these guys actually finish a charge move, the enemy units that they are within engagement range actually have to take a battle shock test, which is kind of nice. They do have the teleport Homer ability as well. So start of the battle, you teleport Homer anywhere on the battlefield outside of your opponent's deployment zone, of course, and you could rapid ingress onto that marker once per game for 0 CP, which is really nice. Within 3 inches of that token and not within 9 of any enemy units. Storm Shields give them 4 wounds, 2-up, 4-up invo, toughness 5. These guys are really solid. The key thing here is they can take any assortment of Terminator weapons. They can even pull from Dark Angels. So you can actually take a plasma cannon. You can take 3 special weapons in this unit with no restriction like what the veterans have. So you can take a 5-man of Terminators and run 3 Cyclone missile launchers in it. It's actually a really solid unit, in my opinion. Or you can take 3 assault cannons, 3 heavy flamers, 3 plasma cannons if you wanted to. The important note is that with Cyclone missile launchers now, they don't allow you to replace the Storm Bolter, so you can't go with, swapping out the Power Fist and Storm Bolter for, Twin Lightning Claws or Thunderhammer Storm Shield. So that's something to bear in mind now. But overall, you can have any character that lead a regular Terminator squad lead these guys. I think for the versatility, their points shouldn't be as high as they are with where they're at. It's great that they do battle shocks. It's great that they can use the teleport Homer, but you're losing out of the Fury the First from the regular Terminators, and I believe they're about 25 points more expensive to 35 points more expensive than a regular Terminator squad from the current codex. Now, yes, they can take power weapons instead of power fists. So if you're wanting to, lean up on them a little bit, have a more anti-infantry role, you can do that, or the power fists. But power fists are actually really solid at the moment, being strength 8, neg 2, flat 2 damage. So again, I think these guys, bit expensive. They can mix and match, which is probably why they cost so much. But really, they should be a little bit less, in my opinion. Next up, we come to another stellar unit for the Deathwatch, which is the Veteran Bike Squad. I actually really, really rate the Deathwatch Bike Squad. They are a really solid unit. So they're 80 points for 3 or 160 for 6. They have the auto advance 6 ability, which is great. You can take one Astarte shield in there on the Sergeant for a 4-up invo if you want to. T5, 3 wounds, 3-up save, basically. They have some weapon options, but the long vigil melee weapons are what you're going to take, and a Xenophase blade on these guys, basically. Because there's going to be strength 5, neg 2, 1 damage close combat weapons. And the Xenophase blade is going to do dev wounds, which is really nice. They've got twin bolt guns as well, which can do some shooting. And yeah, basically all the veterans in the unit will take long vigil melee weapons, because why not? And then the sergeant more than likely will take the Xenos blade, unless you want someone that's a bit more survivable with just a close combat weapon. But I really think the Xenophase blade is the take. These guys can be joined by any character that can join an Outrider squad. The thing with these guys is they are on par with Outriders, and I actually rate these guys better than Outriders, to be honest. Sure, they're 1 less wound apiece, but for the strength 5, neg 2, 1 damage close combat weapons compared to strength 4, neg 1, 1 damage on the Astartes chainswords of the Outriders, I think makes up for the fact that they are losing that 1 wound in comparison. So definitely, these guys are a great choice. They're not overcosted at all. They are actually in a really good spot, and probably one of the better units in this index, if not the best, for where they're at for their points. Then we come to the Corvus Blackstar. Now, this is the only Deathwatch specific vehicle that they have, but the Corvus Blackstar, 180 points. It's a flyer that does have the hover ability as well as stealth, so it's -1 to hit, which is quite nice. Toughness 10, 14 wounds with a 3-up save. Hey, exact same profile as a Storm Raven, with the ability to either go into more anti-infantry shooting or more anti-tank shooting. You actually can dedicate this to being one role or the other, or you can mix and match if you want. I don't really think you're going to, though. You're going to go probably one or the other, and I think that Deathwatch really need anti-tank support, unless you're taking lots of 5-man Terminator units for Cyclones, or you're bringing in other units from the main Marine Codex. Now, it's got the Black Star cluster launcher, so each time this model makes a normal move, you can select one enemy unit it moves over. You roll 6d6 for every 5-up. That unit suffers a mortal wound, which is great. Dishing out mortal wounds for just moving over targets is awesome, and it's not restricted to the aircraft profile either, which is great. Now, you can take one of 2 different upgrades on the Corvus Blackstar. You can either take an Auspex array to give it ignores cover, or the Infernum Halo launcher, which gives it smoke. So it depends on whether you want something that's going to be able to ignore cover, which I think with its anti-tank weapons, with the Storm Strike missile being AP -2, the Twin Las Cannon being AP -3, I think ignores cover is going to be the play on that one. Even if you go with the shooting variant for anti-infantry, I still think you want the ignores cover. But having the option to go smoke as well does help. But the thing is that you've already got stealth. So I'm not really certain if that's going to be the best upgrade to take on them overall. Now, for its points, this thing is on par with the Storm Raven, I would say. It's 180 points. It's got that stealth. The only thing is, compared to the Storm Raven, is it's got 1 less weapon, and it just can't transport a Dreadnought. Is the only thing that's different, because this guy's a transport. It can transport 12 Adeptus Astartes infantry models or 1 kill team unit. Now, each jump pack Gravis or Terminator model takes up 2 spaces. Each Centurion or Mounted takes up 3. So that's something to bear in mind when you're throwing a kill team in here. And it does say 1 kill team, so means you can fudge the capacity a little bit in that regard, so bear that in mind. Now, I really rate this unit. I'm sad I don't own one currently, because I would 100% run one, if not 2, at 180 points and throw some things down range for this guy. Really solid. I really like it. And compared to the Storm Raven, it's actually comparable for the 60-point drop by losing a weapon, losing -1 damage, and not being able to transport a Dreadnought. I think it's a great unit, and it's probably one of the Deathwatch specific units you will look to take in Deathwatch if you're able to. Now we start to get into 4 unique units to Deathwatch, and the way that they are built, and that is the kill teams. And each have got their own abilities and points cost. So first up, we've got the Proteus kill team. Now, the Proteus kill team is the firstborn focused kill team. You have to start off with 5 regular Deathwatch veterans. Then you can add up to an additional 5 Deathwatch veterans, or up to 2 Vanguard vets, 2 bikers, or up to 4 Terminators, and you can only have a maximum of 10 models in the kill team. The ability that this unit has is that each time you make an attack against a target that's not below half strength, you add 1 to the hit roll, which is kind of nice. You've got Storm Shields that you can have in there for your Terminators to give them an additional wound, a ScottyD shield for a 4-up invo, and your regular veterans and such as well. And they've got the variety of weapons that you're likely wanting to take in a kill team. Because for every 5 models in the unit, you can take, Deathwatch Thunderhammer. You can take the different weapons on the Terminator. So up to 3 Terminator models can have those Cyclone missile launchers if you're wanting to. Or if you're wanting to go more close combat, you can go Thunderhammer Storm Shield, that fun stuff. It brings basically the versatility of the bikes, of the Terminators, and the Vanguard veterans from the main codex, along with the Deathwatch veteran foot troops into this one unit. Now, they can be joined by anyone that can join a Stern Guard or Vanguard veteran squad. Also, you've got the Watchmaster that can jump in with them as well. Now, the problem with these guys, despite the ability to take all this different war gear, is they're 180 points for 5 models, or 360 for 10. These guys are well and truly overcosted, like for what you get. Because the first 5 models, they're dedicated veterans. You have to take those veterans. And you're paying a premium of more than 50% of their Deathwatch veteran unit cost to take them. So really, you're not wanting to take this unit. For 360 points for 10, maybe. If you're packing it with 4 Terminators with 3 Cyclones, 1 Thunderhammer Storm Shield, you're packing the 2 to 4 Hammers, and then the additional Storm Shield in the Sergeant with the Xenophase Blade as well. You take off the Terminator first, then the Sergeant, and then you're down to the Cyclones and the Hammers. I think, that's a great way to run it, but 360 points is a lot of points to run a unit that's not all Terminators when, Codex Terminators are coming in at around 380 points for a unit of 10 Terminators with 2 Cyclones, for example. So, again, this unit needs some points drops, and we'll talk a little bit more a bit later about that as well. The next kill team we're going to look at is the Fortis kill team. Now, this is the initial Primaris kill team. It's got your Intercessors, Assault Intercessors, Outriders, and Hellblasters. So for the unit, you start with 5 Intercessors. You can take an additional 5 Intercessors if you want to. You can take up to 4 Hellblasters, up to 4 Assault Intercessors, and up to 2 Outriders. And again, you can only have a maximum of 10 models in the unit. This unit's ability for the Fortis Doctrines is when you make attacks against a unit that is below half strength, you get +1 to hit. So again, you need to be able to knock a unit down to below half strength before you actually start doing damage to it. They do have more limited options than the Firstborn variant just because of the nature of Primaris, and that is completely fine. This unit's kill team cost is 115 points for 5 models and 230 points for 10. When you look at the Marine counterparts, Intercessors at the moment, the 5 Intercessors is 80 points. So you're paying 35 additional points for those first 5 Intercessors. Then on top of that, yes, Hellblasters for 5 of them are 125. So you could say that that's makes up for it a little bit, but I really think that, again, this kill team isn't as bad in terms of the overcosting as what the Proteus kill team is. But these guys are quite overcosted, and you can have any character join them if they can join an Intercessor squad, basically. So, again, not a great kill team. Their abilities a bit meh. I don't think you're going to see this one being run, and it is leaning into a lot of the issues that the Deathwatch have. Next up, we've got the Indomitor kill team. Now, this one is the Gravis focused kill team. So you start off with 5 heavy Intercessors, then you can add up to an additional 5 heavy Intercessors, up to 2 Aggressors, up to 2 Eradicators, and up to 2 Inceptors. Now, they will word them differently, but those are just the models you can add into the unit. Up to a maximum of 10 models, of course. The Indomitor Doctrine enables this unit to add 1 to hit if it's below starting strength, and add 1 to wound if it is below half strength. So that's not the enemy unit, that's the unit that it is. So if you have 5 heavy Intercessors with the 2 Aggressors and the 2 Eradicators and 1 Inceptor. Once you lose, say, the Inceptor or one of the Eradicators or one of the Aggressors, then you're getting +1 to wound. yes, it can be useful if you load up on, say, just the aggressors and the eradicators. You have 6 heavy intercessors, so you lose all the heavy intercessors first, then you've just got the aggressors and the eradicators to get that +1 to wound, which is great, but the +1 hit's nice. This unit is 135 points for 5 models. It's 270 for 10. They do have some ability in the unit, so the eradicator, one eradicator can swap out to have a multi-melter. You can swap out, both aggressors to have the auto bolt storm gauntlets and frag storm launchers. The inceptors, you can have plasma exterminators, and you can have, for every 5 models in the unit, one model that's got a heavy bolt rifle can swap out to have a heavy bolter instead. So you're more likely taking 2 heavy bolters in this unit. But again, 270 points for 10 in this unit compared to some of the Primaris mainline codex costs just doesn't add up. Again, it's overcosted easily compared to what it likely should be. Then the last one, and this is probably the best of the 4 kill teams in terms of points costs and what they can actually do, is the Spectrus kill team. Now, the Spectrus kill team starts off with 5 infiltrators. Then you can take an additional 5 infiltrators, up to 2 eliminators, 2 suppressors, up to 4 incursors, and up to 4 reavers, to a maximum of 10 models in the unit. They have got both the infiltrate and scout 6 inches ability, which is actually really cool. And the Spectrus doctrines, it's basically the same as the scouts. So at the end of your opponent's turn, if this unit is not within 6 inches of any enemy units, you can remove them from the battlefield, place them in strat reserves, and bring them on when you need to, which is really nice. They do have the ability to have the Helix Gauntlet for a 6-up Feel No Pain, the Comms Array to, when you spend a stratagem on them, on a 5+, you get a CP back. Of course, the jump packs are in there on the suppressors as well. Now, these guys are quite limited in their war gear options, but you can have 1 Helix Gauntlet, 1 Comms Array. You can have someone with the Bolt Sniper swap out for the Bolt Carbine. Now, does the Bolt Carbine have the ability? No. It's just got the Marksman Bolt Carbine or the regular Bolt Carbine with precision. You can have any character in there that joins an infiltrator squad. Now, these guys are 105 points for 5 models or 210 for 10 models. Now, honestly, this is probably the closest unit to their Primaris versions. However, you do lose the 12-inch deep strike denial from the infiltrators, which is a pretty big ability in the game at the moment. So, maybe they should factor that in. There could be some points drops for this kill team, but overall, it seems to be, for the most part, appropriately costed. Maybe a little bit of a points drop that you could see there. So, and that's basically looking at the index as a whole for the Deathwatch. Now, my thoughts on the Deathwatch as a whole, things are overcosted, basically, because all the kill teams cost you points, more points than their counterparts in the mainline codex. So if I were to nail down the top 3 reasons why I think Deathwatch is struggling at the moment in the meta, I would say, based off the index and their units and the detachment and their points costs, I would say the number 1 issue is their unit costs overall. They are overcosted. When you compare these costs to the mainline Space Marine Codex, you're paying easily 10 to 20% more for the units that you can take in this index compared to some variants in the mainline Space Marine Codex, which means you're ending up with actually having maybe 1, 2, even 3 units less than what you could if you just took the regular Codex variants from the main Space Marine Codex. Now, you can attribute this to these guys being elite special forces and the flexibility they get that comes with being elite special forces Space Marines, but at the same time, I really think that this is a big reason as to why, because they are quite an elite army, so it means they do struggle in the meta, and they don't have the punch like what, say, Custodes do have with their combat, with their saves, and their durability on the table compared to, say, Deathwatch at the moment for their points cost. The next one, I would say, actually, is their niche flexibility. So whilst the Deathwatch are flexible with their mission tactics, for example, there are some really niche use cases, particularly for precision on critical hits. And with Space Marines having quite easy access to lethal hits through lieutenants, it means that the lethal hits turn doesn't mean as much unless you're not taking lieutenants at all. So really, sustained hits ones is what provides the value in this detachment. Now, yes, there is the flexibility of the tome and the beacon angelus, but there's 70 points in enhancements right there. So this increase in flexibility is met with an increased points cost, as we've said. Expensive enhancements. The stratagems are quite limited compared to some of the other detachments. You know, yes, people will say, well, it's a different kind of flexible to what the Gladius is, and I would agree. But the thing is in the Gladius, you can take the fire discipline enhancement for 30 points, put it on a lieutenant that gives a unit lethal hits, sustained hits 1, and you're not losing any army rules by doing so. So yeah, I think that is where there is some consideration in terms of when you look at the Black Spear Task Force and why you're running it. So yeah. The third one is unit efficiency. Basically, some of the Deathwatch units just aren't as efficient as what their main Codex counterparts are, particularly with Primaris. When you look at, 5 veterans with long vigil melee weapons and storm shields, they cost 20 points more than a unit of 3 Blade Guard vets. The Blade Guard vets actually put out more attacks, or about the same attacks, but they've got one less wound, but only 3 bodies with a 4-up save and the ability to either reroll ones to hit in combat already or reroll ones to their saving throws, which is kind of big, whereas the Deathwatch veterans only get reroll ones to hit all the time. So it gives you that little bit more flexibility. Now, despite these 3 negative reasons as to why Deathwatch are struggling, I want to actually end on a positive note, as we are expecting the balanced data slate to come in soon. So what could we actually see happen to the Deathwatch going forward, and what I would like to see in terms of 3 changes or 3 things that can be done about the index and the codex. First up is just points reductions. With the balanced data slate coming up, I really hope that we get to see some points reductions. The Proteus kill team deserves to be dropped by at least 60 points for the first 5-man. I don't care if it's 300 points for the 10-man. It makes sense if you can run 4 Terminators. Sure, make it 300 points. But the first 5 guys are just bulk standard veterans. I really think that, paying that extra 10 points for +1 to hit rather than reroll ones or reroll all to hit is a nice way to mitigate that. Deathwatch veterans themselves should drop 10 points per model. 10 points per 5, so down to 100 for 5, 200 for 10 would be nice. I don't think that the Watchmaster needs to drop at all. The bikes are in a good spot. Maybe the Terminators drop down. Maybe 20 points to 190 points, I think would be fair. So 190 points for 5, 380 for 10, I think is quite a reasonable points cost for them with their flexibility. They would cost more than your traditional Codex Space Marine Terminators for that flexibility, but at the same time, I think they would still do quite well. So that's what I want to see in terms of their points changes. Now, the next positive is a codex. I'd actually love to see a codex for these guys. Now, there is the rumor that, yes, there is an Imperial Agents codex coming out that is the redacted codex on the timeline. And so the rumor also carries that the Deathwatch is being rolled into that. Now, either that happens and we stick with Black Spear and it gets some tweaks, sure, or we actually get our dedicated codex supplement, which I would prefer, because all of the different Space Marine supplemental indexes are going to get their own codex, and I think Deathwatch should as well, with at least 2 additional detachments like what Dark Angels have got. Now, for those detachments, I could see one being focused around kill teams and giving more benefits to kill teams specifically, rather than the Black Spear Task Force, as well as seeing a detachment focused around using the Corvus Blackstar a bit more, or, similar to Hypercrypt for Necrons or the Grey Knight detachment as well, seeing the teleporting around would be really cool to see for Deathwatch as well. I think it would play nicely into what Deathwatch can do as well. I also think within the Black Spear, they should combine the different ammo stratagems from 3 into 1 and add 2 new stratagems for them to give them some flexibility. Maybe something like Fight on Death would be nice, because these guys can take a lot of melee weapons, and so you want to be in combat. Fight on Death is just going to be really helpful there. And tweaking the mission tactics. So whilst the benefits are nice, they're dice dependent, unlike the Gladius, which they just go, cool, yeah, we're just going to advance and shoot with everything this turn. Sick. So maybe something to assist their effectiveness there. Now, yes, you could say critical hits on 5s when you pop a Malleus or when you pop the mission tactics, which would be kind of cool, but then that increases the overall efficiency of the lists that you could use, and efficiency of the sustained hits 1, lethal hits, and precision as well. So there's going to be kind of a balancing act. I think maybe something along the lines of, You do get the ability, but if you're targeting the Oath of Moment target, you get critical hits on 5s. I think that would be a nice change, and I think that would be something that utilizes a rule that they've already got the benefit of and just gives them something a little bit extra to make sure that, yes, that is the thing we want to kill this turn. We're going to get critical hits on 5s with sustained hits 1 and such as well. And the third one is the kill teams. Basically, they've caught the rough end of the stick with where they're at the moment, because when it comes to their points cost, they are expensive compared to their mainline codex units. Yes, they do allow different war gear items and such, but I believe that the cost per model in each of them is a bit prohibitive in terms of how you can run them. Otherwise, if they continue to actually, keep them at their current points cost, you're not going to run them, because there's no realistic value that you can get out of maybe running multiple on them. I could see use cases for running maybe one Proteus kill team for all of those Cyclone missile launcher shots with the 4 Terminators in there, or you could run an Indomitar to make sure you've got the Eradicators, the Aggressors all in one brick with the Heavy Bolters, put out a ton of firepower there. But again, it just depends on what you want to do, but I don't see armies full of kill teams. I really don't. I maybe see one if you're lucky, but I do see a lot more veterans than I do kill teams, and I think veterans, yes, they're a bit overcosted. They should see a points drop, but they're a better choice than running kill teams at the moment. However, I don't just want to share my thoughts on the Deathwatch. What I actually want to do is I want to hear from you guys with, if you do play Deathwatch, where you think they're at currently. Why do you think they're struggling? What's your opinions on what I've had to say? What changes would you like to see for Deathwatch? Let us know down in the comments section below. I'd love to have a discussion with fellow Deathwatch players to see how we can actually assist each other with this faction, which is probably one of the coolest factions in 40k in my personal opinion, because they're spec ops. Like, that is just such a cool vibes for Deathwatch, which is really sick. And so, hopefully we can start to get some great conversation going on about Deathwatch and improving with where they're at for Warhammer 40,000. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for today's video. I really appreciate you guys sticking through. I know this one's a bit of a longer one, so I appreciate you guys hanging out through the entire thing, joining in the discussion with the Deathwatch as well. Now, if you do enjoy this style of content, feel free to let us know down in the comment section below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already and want to catch more of this style of content, also let us know in the comments. And subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn that notification bell on so you'll be notified as to when we do release the other content here on the network, as well as liking the video if you enjoyed it as well. Now, if you do want to catch us live when we're doing tournament coverage or when we're doing tournament previews, we're doing hobbying sessions and stuff with myself, feel free to go and follow us over on Twitch at the Australis TWN, where you can catch those hobbying sessions, those tournament coverage. We do also multi-stream over here on YouTube as well. And if you do want to financially support us, feel free to check out the Ko-Fi page, where you can support us from as little as $5 Australian a month. And it really does help us out with being able to cover our costs for event coverage and, increase our gear's capacity and enable us to do a lot more with what we have. But ladies and gentlemen, I've been ScottyD. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.